curiosity has been a guiding principle for me, like my whole life. And I like to say lovingly curious. Growing up, just in the household that I was in, there wasn't really the space for a child to like not just be a child, but express themselves fully, like ask questions, be open, be free, right? Be real for a number of reasons. One, because it wasn't modeled to my parents, their culture differences. So now being a father and having different values, still very, some traditional values, still very connected to where I'm from, but also seeing the benefits from the lack thereof of what I didn't have, of having my daughter feel safe. What's working is my willingness to remain curious about what she needs in the moment.
All right, fellas, Samson Odusanya in the house. Father, husband. He's been with his wife, Nicole, now, married 5 years, together 9. He has a daughter. And I'll tell you that if you read his professional bio, you'll see things like multidisciplinary guide with a mission of assisting people in experiencing the truth of who they are. You'll understand what that means by the end of this conversation. The parts that you would probably understand more so would be wellness specialist, health and fitness coach, and breathwork facilitator. I think breathwork's actually getting to be that type of thing where you say it now and it's not like people are like, what the hell is that? I think so many people get it. And ultimately, Samson is supporting people to connect to their breath, their bodies, and to ultimately to free their minds. I want to say, on a personal note, before we dig into this conversation, that the first time I remember being in the same room with Samson, there was an undeniable presence about this man as he was in this space. I remember having the reaction, I don't know who that is, but I want to get to know that guy, because when I think of like solid energy, and I'm not just talking about the fact that you've got to be ripped in order to be solid as a human. I think it's great if you do. It says a lot about your discipline and the way that you treat your body, and Samson is definitely shredded. But it's more about energetically, solid energy. I keep talking about that in Front Row Dads, and that's who I want to be around. Not men that are perfect, not men that don't ever cry, not men that don't have problems, not men that don't admit to any, challenge in their life. I'm talking about even solid in their struggle, like certain in their struggle. And Samson is a solid man who I've learned and I'm learning from, and will be at our retreat next month, this month in San Antonio with our VIP group, and possibly with us in FRDL, which is our event in Austin in December. So, man, I'm excited to dig in today, talk fatherhood, talk life, talk healing, talk health, talk strength with the one and only Samson. So welcome, brother.
Wow, man. What an edification. I appreciate it. Excited.
Yeah. I always say in moments like that, it's just easy to speak the truth. That's why I'm not, I've got a couple notes here, a couple bullet points, but I'm just speaking from the heart, because that's how I connect to you. That's how I see the world. And when I'm just feeling that, whatever is supposed to be said gets said. And if I have to make shit up, it sounds terrible. But if I'm just telling it like it is, then there we go. So Samson, dude, let's just take a second and just talk about, like, how are you, man? Like, literally right now, on this day, how are you?
Check in. Our heart feels open. I feel grounded. I feel, and this is taking a while to get to, but first word that comes is sure, which is so interesting because I've never used that word before. So that's how I feel right now.
If you were to teach a class on how to be sure, what would be some of the chapters of that book, or what would be the course outline, do you think? I'm springing it on you here.
Yeah. The first thing is and I'm just no specific order here, but I think that the entire foundation of that course would be presence.
Mm.
And through and through, what I mean by that is the ability to acknowledge the reality of what is. And I would also go into ways that we deny and avoid reality. So, what that looks like, the ways that we distract ourselves from facing what is true, the way we avoid being able to slow down just for a moment and take the time to listen to what's happening within us, the opportunity to take a breath and connect with what voice is real, not the voice that's always changing tens of thousands of times, but the voice that's actually sure in the moment, that is unwavering and is very true. So that would be kind of like the course outline.
Dude, you seem to me to be so collected, together. Are there times in your life when you were just a total spaz and lost? And dude, what was going on in your life around that time? What season was that?
Yeah, I mean, even more recently, I missed the mark. Now I've developed the skills and the self-awareness to be able to get back on the horse faster.
Mm.
But there were times in my life where, and just because of the conditions I was raised in, I had to grow up really fast. So there were a lot of people, even older than me, that were counting on my ability to hold it together because they couldn't. So what you saw was, I would say a little boy in a grown man's body that looked calm on the outside, but was going through a complete shitstorm on the inside.
Mm.
And for me, that was just a mask because I knew other people were counting on my quote unquote energy, but I didn't know, or I didn't even have the tools to uncover or unearth or even deal with the storms. Now, I can also say this simultaneously. I don't know where I learned this from. I don't know if this is something that was innate, just like we all have innate gifts or qualities. There was always a part of me that knew, regardless of whatever storm I was in, it was going to be okay. So even though most of the time that didn't get as much attention, it was the other side, that I felt like it was like a necessary tap on the shoulder when I needed it. Like, hey, it's going to be okay. Hey, it's going to be okay. But there are many times where, I looked collected on the outside, but I was going through it on the inside.
Dude, speaking of models, examples in your life, especially when you were a kid, what was your relationship or lack of relationship with your father? What was that like from a warning and an example standpoint?
Yeah. Thank you for asking this question. I'm grateful to be even to be at a place to share it so openly. So I was born in London, and my parents moved to California when I was like 2. Shortly after, when I was about 4, my mom and dad separated. I still remember the night that it happened.
Wow.
I was eating Frosted Flakes with warm milk. That was my go-to meal, sitting in the dining room table. And then I'm hearing in the background my parents go at it, like they're arguing. Something was up. So my mom runs out, and she's like, your dad's going to leave. Your dad's going to leave. And here I am, a 4-year-old, don't want my father to leave. I think, like, doing the work that I did, I looked back from the perspective of that boy. I pled with everything in me that came out in the words of, if you leave, I'm going to hate you. That was just my plea to try to get my father to stay.
Yeah.
My mom was distraught. There was tension in the air, and he had his briefcase. It looked like he was on his way out, and he still left. So I was devastated, right? After that, from what I can remember, life became very, very challenging, especially for my mother. And, I had an older brother at the time, but he lived in Nigeria. So I was the only child that my mom had to care for. So a lot of what I would hear growing up was how tough it was and difficult it was to take care of me now that my father was in the picture.
Oof.
I would hear stories of my father from the perspective of my mother. So what was building was this resentment towards the man that left my mom, that left us. The memory that was very still poignant was me pleading not to leave and he left. So there were just these beliefs that accumulated towards my father, the man that brought me into this world, the model of what a man should be, right? The reflection of what a man gets to be and him being absent. As time went by, the next time I saw my father, and in between that, I knew he made attempts. And I'll share later, like reconciling with him, like later on in life and having really deep conversation with him. But I knew there were attempts with him trying to get back in contact with me. But it could be because of my mom's pain. It could be because of my mom's anger. I didn't really know about that. So I only got the perspective of my mom's pain towards my father. It wasn't until fifth grade graduation. I remember graduation day. I'm receiving an award, like the presidential whatever award. And I look back and my mom was waving, and next to her is my father standing there. And I remember feeling so excited, 10 years old, like seeing my father again. I think before then, I may have spoken to him maybe twice or three times.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, this is not to say he wasn't trying to reach out to me. This is why I said, like, there's a lot of missed things there between, because my mom's not innocent. I'll say that for sure. But I only spoke to him like 2 or 3 times. And in those times, there were broken promises that were made, which I feel stimulated the resentment I had towards him even more. So to see him in the flesh, all that was parked to the side because I was just a young boy who was excited to see his dad. That summer, I got to spend the summer with him in California, where he was living at the time. And then after that, after the 2.5, 3 months, I didn't see him again for a few years. And the relationship was just in and out. He'd show up and then he'd disappear. He'd show up and then he'd disappear. So that was the relationship with my father.
Do you know now why he was disappearing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So 3 or 4 years ago, I woke up meditating. I woke up and I meditated. And in that meditation, up until this point, I had not spoken to my father for about 6 months. We were pretty frequent in conversation. And when I say frequent, it's like every 2-3 months, which is good enough for me. And up until that point, I'd already done enough of the internal work to release some of the resentment and anger I had towards him and also towards myself for feeling at fault for why he left.
Right.
So 3 to 4 years ago, I was in meditation and it was loud. It said, "Call your father." I'm like, okay, like why? But I didn't overthink it. And we're in contact via WhatsApp because he's in London. So I reach out to him. I actually sent him a message like, "Dad, it's been a while. I'm looking forward to talking with you soon. Let me know when you can speak at your earliest convenience." He messages back maybe 15 minutes later. It's like almost like he was waiting for me to do that.
Yeah.
Right? I also think a part of our relationship was the shame and guilt he felt towards the actions that he took, that almost built this wall or sense of resistance with the way he wants to love me, but never knew how to. So we spoke. And then that conversation organically manifested into me being even more interested in his upbringing. Like I had a combo with him, but at the time, this was before I was a father. So my listening is a lot different now that I'm a father. Now I'm starting to understand what it's like to be in the shoes of a father. So my empathy and compassion for him was more present than ever. So I'm not listening. I'm like, "Dad, like, tell me about your upbringing. Dad, like, tell me about like you and Mom." In that moment, I realized most of what I had known about him was from my mother.
Yeah.
He'd never really gotten a chance to share with me who he was because I felt like he was repaying or recouping for the times lost. So there was no time for anything else. So as I'm speaking with him, he's now sharing with me his side of the story. And what I begin hearing is a man who, after him and my mom separated, didn't know where I was. And him not knowing where I was, he said, he shared a story of him driving down, I forgot what highway in California, and he went into a daze because he didn't know where I was. So he like freaked out and almost like spun off the road, and he could have died. So here I am listening to a man who I thought like left me, but because him and my mom just didn't work out, they separated. Now as a married man in a really committed relationship with a daughter, I finally understood. I was like, if I was 23, married to my mother, in the conditions that were present with a young boy, I'm his only son, who's to say that I would not have done the same thing?
Yeah.
So I understood my dad instantly. There was no need to forgive him because I accepted him. I accepted all of it. And then in that moment, we cried. I finally saw him. And then, maybe the residue of the resentment I may have still held or whatever, like it was gone simply because I now was not operating from a space of a reaction towards my father. It was like, okay, I have love for you truly now because you're an imperfectly perfect human being who did the best you could with what you had. And here's the thing, you also grew up and learned what you did and saw what you did from your environment, growing up. So that was clear. Yeah.
So interesting, man. What you just said, like there was healing when you saw him, like when you truly saw him. And I can't help but immediately think about my own relationships where a lot of times when I'm angry, I'm really seeing myself and the story that I've crafted. Like I'm seeing me being wounded. I'm seeing the other person being so, inconsiderate, and I feel so hurt. And oftentimes when I really learn about the other person, what they went through, why they were absent-minded, what they were thinking, the minute I begin to really see people, that's where the healing comes in for me. I also want to note that you went from this like resentment to curiosity. Yeah. And I think that we have to get curious to be able to see the person, to be able to have a new story or a new perspective. So maybe it's not even like the story we think is accurate needs to be healed. We actually just need a different story at times because the story, as we've told it, may not actually be the story.
Right.
It's a version of the story. It's one angle of it. But there's a lot that's missing there. Man, and the other thing I wrote down was just somebody that wants to love but doesn't know how. A lot of times I feel that way in my relationship with my wife and with my kids. Like I desperately want something. I want to feel something. I want to have something. And I don't really know all of what's preventing me. I don't know all of the steps that need to be taken. Right. But that's why, and I was just talking with my friend Dan Doty about this, about modeling, and like having men in my life that I can't tell you, Samson, how many times I see one of my brothers do something and I immediately start talking to my kids the same way, do whatever. Like I almost implement immediately.
Same.
And I love that. I love that I'm willing at this point. My ego's not like, well, I'm going to do it my way. He does it his way. It's like, no, that was effective. That worked. I'm going to take that. I'm going to use that. Yep. Yeah. Just a good example.
Yeah, a good example. I do it. I've done it in every area of my life, especially in fatherhood and marriage, because I didn't have the example growing up. So I had to learn. I had to jump in the fire. I had to get baptized over and over and over again. And what you said, I think, has been a big catalyst for just my ongoing evolution. It's the willingness. It's the ultimate willingness to be curious. Yeah.
Yeah. Guys that come into our community and the ones that don't work out, the ones that leave, it seems to me they're really not willing to do the work. My buddy Kasim and I were talking recently about you can't outsource your push-ups, and if anybody knows that, dude, you're the guy. You can't outsource your push-ups. So you got to be willing to do the work. And the people who come in, I think they're looking for some magic bullet in front row dads that will get them connected to their kids or a better marriage. But they're, and again, talk about not judging people. I'm saying why I think they end up leaving, but I haven't walked in their shoes. Maybe if I was them, I would leave too. Maybe whatever it is, but I do see that there, in my opinion, there seems to be a moment where they're unwilling to do the work. I remember, Tim Nikolive, and Tim had said to me, because Tim's really smart in business. He's literally like a teacher at Acton Business School and was voted Teacher of the Year, like really smart dude. And I said, hey man, will you help me build Front Row Dads, whiteboard it out? The way your brain works is awesome. And I remember he goes, yeah. He goes, when do you want to do it? And I was like, the calendar, I got this, I got that. I pushed him off for months. Even after he offered the help, I was like, I'm just so busy. He goes, when are you going to make time so that you can make time? Like, when are you going to make time so that you can make time? And I was like, all right, I'm going to force this in there. And that was part of the catalyst and what led me to ultimately coming full circle. I took the family, as you know, to Europe this year for 3 weeks. I was a week in Colorado. So I was probably gone for like 5 weeks out of my business, like traveling with my family. But the crazy part, Samson, is like I watched Tim do this for the last half a dozen years. He's done it for like 7 years that I've seen him traveling to Europe with his family every summer. And I was like, how does one live that life? Like, how does one do that from a financial, like all of it. Right. But he modeled it, and then he challenged me to make time. And so the willingness piece is huge, man. The willingness piece is huge. And let me use this as a transition to get into your life now. Yeah. I want to talk about you as a man today and how you're showing up. Talk to me about what's working as a father for you right now, and also what's challenging for you as a father right now.
Yeah. Again, no specific order, just sharing from what's here in the moment. So what's working? Again, it's back to this willingness and curiosity. So curiosity has been a guiding principle for me, like my whole life. And I like to say lovingly curious. Growing up, and I think this could kind of, go hand in hand with the challenge as well. Growing up, just in the household that I was in, there wasn't really the space for a child to, like, not just be a child, but express themselves fully, like ask questions, be open, be free, right? Be real, for a number of reasons. One, because it wasn't modeled to my parents, their culture differences. And I knew if my parents didn't know how to do it, they definitely weren't going to do it for me. So now being a father and having different values, still some traditional values, still very connected to where I'm from, but also seeing the benefits from the lack thereof of what I didn't have, of having my daughter feel safe. What's working is my willingness to remain curious about what she needs in the moment. Because what I know is, as much as I've been given the honor to be her father, I don't own her. I'm here to guide her in a way that helps her feel safe enough to be herself. And it's a dance. So there are many times where I'll just watch her, and I'd watch her mannerisms. And because, you have children, they grow fast, and they grow very fast. So there's one moment where I built this relationship with this child, and then the next day it changes. So it keeps me on my toes in a way to where I have to remain curious so I can keep meeting her where she's at, and not where I want her to be. Now, I also balance that with helping her know that I am her father and I am there to protect her and I am there to provide for her in a way that she respects me, right? I grew up being afraid of my mother, right? Being afraid. Now, I think there are multiple ways to gain love from someone. Fear is not a sustainable way,
Right.
right? It's not a healthy way.
Do you think there's a healthy fear? Like,
Sure.
I don't know. I mean, like, I'm asking seriously, like, is there a healthy fear?
Depending on context, I think, right? I think fear that nudges someone to take a chance or take a risk could be healthy. Obviously, that there could be many nuances within the context of that, but overall, like fear or sustained fear isn't healthy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Got it.
So that was a normality. I was afraid.
Yeah.
I loved my mom. My mom, I knew she loved me, but I was afraid. There's that, and then there's the other way. And I was like, I don't want my daughter to be afraid of me because then down the line, she's going to be afraid to speak to me. She's going to be afraid to tell me what I need to know, especially when it comes to her safety. She's going to be afraid to be around my energy. The lack of safety prevents my daughter from being herself. And for me, I'd rather her respect me and feel safe than be afraid of me and feel separate from me. So that's what's working. It's just the constant willingness to be curious. And then what isn't working or what's been challenging, I'll say that. So becoming a parent, I realized was a different level and deeper opportunity for inner child work. I had done so much inner child work, but there is nothing like inner child work when it comes to parenting. There are many times.
Frame that out real quick, by the way, for anybody who is hearing the term inner child work for the first time. I get there's an element of like, I think I can get it, John, but give a little context to that.
Yeah. So what inner child work is, this is just an oversimplified definition. What inner child work is, ways that we can go back into our past, predominantly our childhood, to resolve or heal a lot of what has been unresolved and completed, or, still has a lot of trauma that's been unmet. So inner child work is just being able to heal the past wounds from our childhood. Yeah. And obviously it's a journey for a lot of people. For me, it's been a journey. But within the context of parenthood and fatherhood, I remember, 3 years ago, or almost 3 years ago, my wife had gone away for about 4 days. So it's me and my daughter for 4 days. I'm excited, right? It's like I get to spend time with my daughter. And I think day 2, I started to notice something interesting happen. And I appreciate your feedback earlier, observing me as a collected person. Because now, like, I could say I'm an actual collected person. It's seldomly like anything that would knock me off course. This day, I was highly triggered by my daughter. Her voice was irritating. Her question asking was irritating. Like, her being near me was irritating. And this is what, like, kind of sent it for me. We had gone to Whole Foods, and she's in the car. And this time, she's like 2 or a little, just over 2 years, 2 years old. I'm pushing her in the cart. She loves being there. I normally give her the items, and she'll take it, put it in the cart behind her. She decides to reach and place her hand on my chest, and I react. And I said to myself, yeah, this is not good. Like, what's going on here, Samson? So we get back home. I put her to bed, and I decide to really sit with what was present. And what I realized was, it was the young boy that had feelings of what felt like was jealousy, envy, and almost resentment towards my daughter, because she had the space and the freedom to ask whatever she wanted, do what she wanted, and be herself. And what I noticed was there was still the elements of this hurt little boy that did not have that growing up and was feeling the effects of that. So my daughter has shown me pockets and blind spots of parts of me that have still gone unresolved and parts of me that I have still not brought love to. At the end of the day, that's all my little boy wants. He wants to know that, wait, it's okay for her to do, so can we do that? And he just wants me to give him love, to acknowledge that it's okay for him to ask questions. It's okay for him to be free. So my daughter has been a catalyst for a good amount of inner child work. And the challenge has just been loving myself, right, deep enough to simultaneously have the love to give her that she needs.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. That's
Yeah.
that level of awareness, Samson. Like, holy shit, dude. I'm so impressed that you got there. What I want to know is, how did you get there? Okay, so I have two questions.
Yeah.
You can take this wherever you want, but like, one is, all right, so you have this reaction, and then after you put her down, you wanna take a look at what's going on. But if a guy sits down on the couch after he hears this and he's like, all right, I put my kid down and I sit on the couch and I'm like, what's going on with me? How do they get to that level of awareness? So that's one. And then the other one, and you could choose to answer both, neither. You could end the interview and run away, like whatever you want. No, just kidding. But where did you get exposed to this inner child work? Which maybe will help complement the other answer too.
Absolutely. I'll start with the latter question first, because then we
Yeah.
could segue into the other one. So it started off with, I think a lot of my work started with the physical. So I always say the lowest hanging fruit for anybody that wants to start any type of like personal work is start with the physical, what's tangible, what you can touch. And for me, that was through fitness, through nutrition, through working on my health. I used to work as an ER tech, and that was the perfect environment for me to see what I did not want to be if I was reckless with my own lifestyle choices.
Oh yeah.
So at a very young age, playing football, that's what started the life of, being active. But even after that, my intention and my why, which evolved from, doing it to look good for reasons rooted in vanity, which there's nothing wrong with, evolved to a deeper why, which was sourced in being healthy. Like, I just want to be healthy. And I learned back then, because I love the etymology of words, that healthy means whole. So for me, I just decided to take a holistic approach to my physicality. In the space of that, I began noticing that, and kind of take it back. I learned, and this happened when I was like 5% body fat, shredded, best shape of my life. I noticed I would get invited to like outings, right? Or get invited to like a park workout or go to the pool. And my partner, who's now my wife, or my friends would be like, dude, take off your shirt. Like, not because they were, looking to show me off. It was like, dude, take off your shirt. We're about to jump in the pool. And I still felt elements of insecurity.
Wow.
This is at 5% body fat, right? Like the ideal shape. And then I would notice how I would still feel elements of this internal conflict. And I'm like, oh, well, I thought fixing or working my health was supposed to get rid of this. And I learned quickly that the gym at one point, or my body at one point, was just another way for me to hide from myself. So those insecurities were surfacing, and I realized, oh, this is tough. Like, I got results in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, but I still had years of programming and conditioning that's not going to take 3 months to heal. So that had me be really curious about coaching and like going internally. Up until that point, I was a part of a community that prioritized health, fitness, and nutrition, and also personal growth. So at that point, I'm reading books, Think and Grow Rich. I'm reading The Secret. I'm reading the Kabbalion. I'm heavy into spirituality and personal development. Mindset-wise. Again, This is after attending seminars. I went to the landmarks, the MITTs, the insights. I can name them all. I got personal mindset coaching. I'm also in the community for it. And I realized that too wasn't enough. Because I did the mindset coaching to shift my habits and behaviors, but then somewhere along the line, I'd find a way when I hit my ceiling or I hit my own nervous system alarm that I would sabotage, or as I like to say, regulate myself back to my identity. So all this was going on, and I'm like, okay, something's got to give here. And I learned that that was only the physical, the mental was only a certain level of the internal work. I had to go even deeper. And this is what led me now to delve into the emotional realm. This was about 8 to 9 years ago when I got invited to my first breathwork session ever.
9 years ago.
Yeah, almost 9 years ago.
You're like an OG in this space.
Yeah. Well, OG as far as like personal, and then like started helping people roughly close to over 4 years ago. But
yeah,
OG when it comes to like being introduced to this, yeah. Because for me, it was personal first. Like a lot of what I do for other people started with me. Like I needed it.
100%.
I needed it first. So I go to this breathwork session. I'm open. Again, curious. A good friend who was a mentor of mine, their brother-in-law was a facilitator. They were also the one mentoring me and helping me navigate a lot of what was happening in my life, in my relationship, in my personal life.
Is this out in California, by the way?
It's out in California.
Yeah.
So the breathwork session was in Santa Monica. We go to a yoga studio. I'm just open. I'm like, cool, let's do it. I start breathing. The effects kick in. And then all of a sudden, from what I can remember, this wave of emotion came in the form of tears. In that moment, I realized, holy crap. Yeah, I'm changing and shifting my mindset. Yes, I'm working out in the gym. Yes, I look and feel good. Yes, I understand all these spiritual concepts on one level, but dude, you have not been feeling. Every time you've been trying to feel, you've stuffed it down. You've been told a lot of your life, stop crying or I'm going to give you something to cry about. Right? You're hearing in the background of society, big boys don't cry. Right? You're a little bitch if you show emotion, like all this stuff. Like, and I realized in that moment, bro, you have not been feeling. So that session was the beginning of what felt like a reintroduction to my emotions in a healthy and safe way. And then as a man, so I came out of that session feeling grounded, feeling clear, feeling open, feeling like I felt great amongst like other visions that I saw. So that piqued a different level of interest when it came to my own personal growth. And that's when I started to go into research of the breath, which led to, studying the emotions and somatics. And then to fast forward to your first question, all of that, and I know I just kind of compounded years of many elements of my story in like a few moments, but all of that compounded to lead me to a place where I have a good amount of self-awareness, even though I know I'm still blind to certain areas, but a good amount of self-awareness to slow down and listen, but not with my ears. Like listen to what's happening internally. And usually what I do as I go through a checklist, and maybe this could be useful to your listeners, what I've learned to understand is that we have thoughts that are built from beliefs that are essentially built from unprocessed or unmet emotions, right? That are built from unmet needs, which are usually sourced in trauma.
Yeah.
So I take myself through this checklist, especially in a situation like that. Now, in real time, it's not that orderly. It's like, it's quick. Most of the time, it's catching myself before I react. Like, if you can do that, you've already won. If you can stop the conditioning and programming and patterning in action before you would react, you've already won. I think it's Viktor Frankl that says, between stimulus and a response, there's a space. And that space is where our growth and freedom is. So that space is stopping myself before reacting in a way that would impact my daughter when she touched my chest. Like, if I just, like, move suddenly, that could have impacted her. So it's being able to catch myself. So on the couch, what thoughts am I thinking? Okay. I'm thinking, well, is there something like wrong with me as a father? Like, why am I feeling this towards my daughter? Like, what's going on? And then I go into the beliefs. Well, what do I believe about, like, what's going on? Oh, shitty father, yada, yada, yada. And then me go down even more. Okay, what do I need to feel in this moment? And what was there was, in that moment, what was there was sadness. If I could recall, it was sadness. But it wasn't sadness right away. It was actually like, there was like, not anger, but it was a bit of anger. It was a touch of upset that I was experiencing what I was experiencing. But once I allowed myself to move through the upset, there was sadness. And the sadness was connected to the needs that weren't met as a child when I wanted to speak, when I wanted to say how I felt, when I wanted to play, when I was told I was too much or my power was too much. Here I am now as a man who's done work and is in a position to care for this beautiful girl while still simultaneously feeling the effects of the opportunity she has to be herself that I didn't have. So there was sadness. And then in that moment, there was nothing to do, just allow myself to feel sad, And then when I was feeling the sadness, I realized it wasn't adult Samson. This was the little boy. This is the little boy that was feeling sadness. And in that moment, I just let him know, dude, it's okay. I feel you. I know why you're sad. And then I made a promise to him. I made a promise to commit to allowing him to speak when he wants to speak. Right? To allow him to question when he wants to question. To allow him to play when he wants to play. Because here's the thing. Yes, we transition to adulthood, but we never lose. We actually don't want to lose that child aspect of ourselves. Because that's the part that's connected to the imagination and the creativity. And at one point I was cut off from that. My life became very rigid and serious.
Yeah. Do you think if a dad has a hard time playing with his kids? Because I was talking to somebody about this morning, and we were talking about fatherhood, and I was like, I think some fathers struggle with the fact that they have this vision when they become a dad, and their kid's like, will you play Army Men with me? And he's like, yeah. And then they sit down, and for hours they get lost in Army Men, and they're do it. But what really ends up happening is what happened to me, which is I sit down for 5 minutes, and I'm like, I fucking hate Army Men. I'm having a really hard time with this game. I'm having a hard time being creative and imaginative, and I've got all these things that I need to do, and this feels like, look, I love you, I want to be present for you, but this is torture, right? And especially when it's like it's not going the way I think it should go. Like, oh, this is how we play Army Men. Everything you set up, I destroy. That's how my son used to play, right? I set something up, he goes, I kill that. And I'm like, at some point, it's so funny. I'm like, I'm a grown man and I should be better at this. But I wonder if because I'm not connected to my inner child, I have a hard time being there. My 48-year-old has a hard time. But if I were connected to the inner child, he might enjoy that with Ocean.
Yeah. To answer your question, I don't know. But I can say there's a possibility. When my daughter invites me to play with her toys, with her dolls, like, I'm right along with you. My mind wants to jump somewhere else, and I have to catch myself. And I realize sometimes I get bored, and it's not because I don't want to play with her, it's because I can't really source that creative, playful energy
Yeah.
to
Right.
meet her where she's at. So this is just an
Totally.
invitation for me to, dude, loosen up, go play more. Like yesterday, she pulled out the drawers to the little what you call it in our room, and she pulled it out. And my wife helped her set up this canopy with our comforter. And now she has like this little tent. She comes to grab my hand. So like before I can even think about anything, she's like, "Dad, come." And I've caught myself many times wanting to worry about anything else except what mattered the most, which is to be there with my daughter. So she pulls me into the room, and I'm literally like crawling under this thing, and we're just sitting there. And I'll never forget this, and it's happened many times. She has this smile on her face. Like, you may know this smile, right? Our children have different faces, but she had this smile on the face where she looked at me. And it wasn't a smile of her excitement towards playing. It was a smile that my dad's here with me.
Mm.
Like it's like the awe. It's like I feel so inspired that my dad's here with me, right?
Mm.
And even though I know it's not going to be perfect, even though I know it's unrealistic to keep that smile on her face 100% of the time, I want to commit to making sure that a lot of her core memories is her smiling like that because she knows that her dad made her matter.
Dude, when you think about metrics that we track, KPIs for your business, how many followers you have on Instagram, whatever it is. And by the way, I track all those things. Like and I'm also interested in like, what are the metrics as a dad that matter? What if there was a way that we could count how many times your daughter said, "Dad's here now"? What if there was a counter? What if there was some way for us to register all those smiles when they had that emotion and that feeling? I haven't figured this out yet, but I'd love to be at the forefront. I'd love to be leading in the space of helping men measure success at home also. Because I get that the idea is like, well, just show up and love your kids. And like, yeah, that feels great as like a baseline. Yeah. And I think that that love is so powerful. And I think that's such a great point they're making. And I also don't want to let that be an excuse for not giving my best, right? And I want to figure out what are the things I can be. By the way, all the metrics are just so I can become more aware. Yeah, that's it. That's all I want is more awareness. Yeah. I want more awareness of what's happening in any situation. It's like when I meditate and I'm noting, I'm like, what do I see, hear, and feel? I just want more awareness of what is. Yeah. So that by having that awareness, I can then make intentional choices about my next move with the data that I'm surrounded by, how my body is interacting in space with the things in my life. I want to be able to make a good decision. So, dude, one other thing I want to say, by the way, is about like the hand on the chest. It really got me thinking about when I react to my kids asking 1,000 questions and being persistent, being loud and expressive, and all the things I don't want to shut them down for. I don't want to crush their spirit, right? Don't want to do that. But damn, it's hard when they're relentless, like relentless. Is a lot of times when I'm angry, I'm like, I'm angry at you, child, because I actually don't know what my boundary is, and I don't know how to communicate it to you in an intelligent way. And so because I'm unclear of myself and my boundaries, and I don't know how to hold them, and I'm out of integrity, I'm angry at you. Because it's like, damn you for pointing out the fact that I don't know where my boundaries are. And I find that my reaction in that, like putting the hand on the chest and like having this big reaction is like, fuck you for pointing out once again that I don't know where my boundaries are as a human.
And that's what they're for.
That's true. Yeah, that's what happens for me. My growth is if I don't make it about them and I just get the lesson and I'm like, I have a boundary that's right, being overstepped. I'm not angry that he's still up and past his bedtime. I'm angry that I don't have a healthier boundary for myself, a healthier system. I'm angry that that's what I'm really angry about.
Yeah.
You know, that it's not that I wish for a less intense child as much as I wish to be a better man, to embrace that and have a boundary so that he feels safe. It's like, I love that thought when I was a new dad and I realized that, why do kids fall asleep in the car? Like, why is it so easy for this kid to fall asleep in the car? And it's like, because it's positive, it's a constraint. They feel safe. That's why a baby gets swaddled and feels great. It's like, I feel held and protected. That's what a boundary does for a child. And I think as a father, that when we create those healthy boundaries, kids feel safe. That's why they actually crave some rules, because without them, look, I'm all for my kids being wild creatures in the world in some way. I want them to have that freedom and creative expression, but I also know that it just happened with Tiger recently. I pulled some of his screen time freedom back. I tightened up the reins a little bit. And honestly, his reaction was like, energetically, thank you. That was feeling a little out of control.
Yeah.
And by you putting these boundaries in place, I actually feel better.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
What a powerful point, John. And thank you for helping me also point out. Yeah, it's like, as much as we're our children's teachers, they teach us as well.
Yeah.
And I just realized it's like, yeah, my daughter, when she's moving through whatever she's moving through, I get to be there with her, but it's also showing me where I have a blind spot or where I have holes in my system, right? And they're the telltale sign of the type of man that you are, especially at home.
Yeah.
So yeah, what a very powerful point. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, what do you want your work to do in the world? Like, talk to me about the impact you want to have. Talk to me about the mission for you. And I'm so happy that you're going to be joining the Front Row Dad event, that we're going to do breath work together. I'm so excited to learn from you and to continue to build our brotherhood between the two of us. And I want to support you, and I want guys who are listening to support you in your mission and be interested and lean in, because I believe in this, because I believe in community, because I want to know what you're after. So talk to me about mission. Talk to me about purpose.
I appreciate you, and I'm looking forward to supporting in the coming weeks. Thank you for the invite, by the way, too. I'm really grateful for the opportunity. So when it comes to mission, it's evolved over the years, but it's still been almost like the same. And let's talk about purpose. I've come to learn over the years that it's not limited to, my purpose isn't limited to what I do, because what I've done has changed so many times, right? And what I do changes. It's connected to the essence of who I am and my reason for being. And in this life, for me, what I'm clear about, just over the course of my 35 years, a constant that's been there has been empowerment, healing, and amplify. Those three words. So when I think about my reason for being, it's to empower, it's to heal, and it's to amplify. Now, there are many ways that I could do that, but as long as I stick to those standards or values, if you will, or those energetic catalysts, if you will, then my purpose will always find me. Now, as far as my mission currently, right now, what I'm finding in the world is that there are a lot of people who are still in pain. And that pain is preventing them from living and being who they're here to be. I know that each and every single person has a seed within them that they're meant to nourish and water and sprout in this life. Everybody has a purpose. Everybody has a mission, if you will. It's different. And oftentimes that mission is clouded and it's hindered because of the pain or the inability to be with the pain. And oftentimes that pain is connected to an unresolved past that has a lot of resistance around it. This pain also hinders people's ability to open their hearts, to not only receive love, but give love in a way that is true. So my mission is to help people remove what is in the way of them knowing the truth of who they are. Back to the context of this wholeness, we were born whole. You look at your children, it's like, what side of them don't they show you? They show you all of it. I like to say that our children.
I just pictured Ocean walking around the house naked
Right.
all the time.
Right. And it's like, with no shame.
Yeah, no shame.
With no shame, because Ocean is still very much connected to the essence of who he is. Right? Y'all are doing a phenomenal job of, keeping that fire going and nourishing that. But somewhere along the line, the world gets to us and we get sanitized, over sanitized, and we veer off. We are over polarized in one side where we're denying completely the other side, or we forgot how to get messy. All these things that disconnect us from the truth. And my mission is just to get people back to the truth that has always existed within them, that would not have them subscribe to the need to look for it outside of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful, man. Well, I'm excited to experience your work with the guys, and it's important work.
Yeah.
I mean, just creating this space is such important work. When I think about some of our more recent events, when I think about the thing that cracked the dudes open for the deepest conversation, it's hard to think of something other than breathwork that got us to that place of openness. So it's almost becoming like a staple part of what. No, you need the conversation. You need to go drop in and talk with the dude and have the real talk. But this is such a piece of opening it up and creating a really positive channel to do all that. So I love it, man. It's not, by the way, for anybody who hasn't tried it yet and you're like, I want to try that. It's called Breathwork for a reason. It's not just like sit around and like, oh, we're just breathing together. This is good. This work. Yeah. If you're doing it the right way, you're working, I think. So anyway, Samson, thank you so much, man. I want to ask you 4 questions here at the end, just as a chance to ask you if there's any wisdom that you would like to share on 4 subjects that impact this group in a profound way. And so it's a little bit of wisdom is what it is. Like a truth in your life, a thought, an idea on each one. So a minute to 2 kind of per. Yeah. It could be a sentence, by the way. You could even just give me a word. Whatever you want. Parenting. Best wisdom you have on parenting.
Do the work to grow your capacity to love yourself just enough so you can have the love to give to your child.
Dude, the word capacity keeps coming up for me. And even just thinking about using the term high capacity men as a way we describe our community, it's been hitting me from every direction. I'm like, all right, I got it. Capacity. Yeah. It's so interesting because we use the term, and Steph uses the term range. I love that idea of men with range. That's actually the cover of our manual. You'll see it. It says men with range. Talk about marriage wisdom. Go.
Marriage. Okay, I'm going to share a few bits. Okay. Commit to choosing your beloved every day. And then before you know it, you'll be with your beloved until.
Mm.
And here's another one. Allow this space for perpetual renewal to experience your relationship in ways that you never had before. Yeah.
How about health? Health wisdom.
Health is the cornerstone of everything. When you lose it, you realize it's the most important thing. When you have it, you realize how it enhances everything you have.
And how about business or money?
Just like everything moves in seasons, my experience, business and money sometimes happens in waves. You just get to be a better surfer.
Yeah, that's right. No
Yeah.
doubt. Samson, I appreciate you in this conversation. It was exactly what I had hoped for. It was real. It was from the heart. Enjoyed it. Look forward to many more of these. And if people want to connect with you and your work, where do they go?
Currently, samsonodusanya.com, which is my site. It's being redone right now, so if it's not up, no problem. It'll be up shortly. But I'm currently on Instagram, Samson's_strength. That's where you can find a lot of my stuff and the value that I put out. And also feel free to send me a message and connect with me on there.
Awesome. And guys, we'll link to the Instagram account. By the way, your account is one of my favorites. I love the content that you put out. I love the messaging. I love the reminder too, dude. Even if it's like you in the gym working out, I'm like, I got to get to the gym today. So thank you for modeling that, man. And yeah, I'll see you in a couple weeks. Guys, check out Samson's work. Thanks for listening today, and hope to see many of you December 6th through the 8th in Austin. We haven't even advertised this event, Samson, except for like me maybe dropping like a little something like this here and there. I think we've sold 55 tickets to this event, which is crazy. And like we literally haven't even started. We haven't even sent a single email out about the event yet. So it's going to be exciting. Hopefully we'll see you guys there. Nothing beats an immersive experience. Like you want to have the biggest change in the least amount of time, go immerse yourself around other great men who are choosing to lead at home and in their businesses and their communities. So frontrowdads.com/live is the site. And yeah, guys, we want to keep connecting with guys like Samson. So if you valued this conversation today, which by the way, if you didn't, this show is not for you. If you found no value in today's conversation, unfollow the podcast. No, don't ever go to frontrowdads.com. Just go find your miracle cure somewhere else. But for everybody else who wants to have real conversation with great men, frontrowdads.com. All right, guys, that's it. Thanks, Samson.